Let's talk about Terrifier 3. Terrifier 3 takes place 5 years after the previous film, and we're following Sienna as she leaves a psychiatric facility and is struggling with some major PTSD. Simultaneously, we see Art wreaking havoc with his sidekick, Victoria. Soon, Art and Sienna have a fateful reunion that ends in bloodshed. Naturally. This movie was written and directed by Damien Leone, who did the first 2 films in the franchise, and it stars David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown, and we see Laura Lavera return as our final girl, Sienna. The movie comes in at 2 hours and 5 minutes, and it is filled with some of the most disgusting kills I've seen on screen. This movie essentially ups the ante with the kills of the previous 2 films. We see Art opening people's skulls like Christmas presents. We see him utilizing chainsaws, axes, guns, and he also puts rats to some creative use during his kills. Some of these kills are so gnarly, but they are so impressively done, all practically, which is just amazing to me. I think that's just what makes the Terrifier series so freaking cool. The kills are really disturbing and gross and might really upset some, but I think it's offset with the delightful glee from Art as he's committing all of these crimes. He feels like a giant kid just having fun, and his facial expressions are hilarious. Like, you can't help but laugh as he's doing these horrible things, and he's making blood angels with people's blood. He's dressed as Santa and just having a blast. David Howard Thornton is amazing in this. He doesn't utter a single word, but he has so much expression on his face where you can see him be happy, and then when he switches to be upset or when he's about to do something really evil. There's one moment where he's listening to 2 college kids talk about Art and how he's like the next generation's Jack the Ripper, and he's like sitting there listening and he's like taking it all in, kind of bashful. Little moments like that make Art just stand out even more among the serial killers that we have in the genre. Sienna is back, and she is the reason I liked Terrifier 2. She made the movie feel like there was an actual reason to watch and root for people. What I like about it is that we see a little bit of her PTSD, because somebody who goes through the things that Sienna did in the previous films, why wouldn't she have PTSD? Feels very similar to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, where we see Laurie Strode going through a similar thing. I really liked that, and I liked how it made her kind of an unreliable narrator, so you don't know if some of the stuff she's seeing is actually real or it's just a figment of her imagination. That's really all we have to story. The story doesn't really grow anymore from the previous 2 films. We are just essentially seeing Art kill a bunch of people before he gets back to Sienna. Terrifier 3 was originally announced as a Christmas movie. Many people were up in arms over Art killing kids. Would he kill kids on screen? Would he be going too far? And I will say he does kill kids, but the kills mostly happen off screen for the children. Like, he still messes them up. He still chops them up into little pieces, but you don't actually see them, so I think that's their way of getting away with going a little too far. There were also some scenes that really bothered me. There is a scene with the character Victoria that is very upsetting to me. I don't even think it's not even the most upsetting scene in the movie. You don't even actually see anything, but it bothered me as a woman to see it happen, and I was like, ugh. No! There's also another scene that is reminiscent from a scene in American Psycho, the book, that comes to life, where I was like, damn, that's messed up. This movie succeeds in its kills. They are even more creative than the previous 2 installments. It's just super fun seeing them actually come up with these ridiculous, over-the-top, brutal ways that people can die. My biggest issue with this movie is the pacing and editing. It feels weird. When we see Art actually meet Sienna in the 3rd act, it feels like it almost just comes out of nowhere, even though we've been building up to that. But I don't know, it just felt like I missed a chapter. Felt like it jumped too quickly to that. And there are some off-screen deaths, major off-screen deaths that we didn't get to see, which felt weird to me. The battle between Art and Victoria now being brought into this, it amped up the stakes and made the fight seem really brutal. It was brutal, and they're a lot meaner. This movie is for Terrifier fans, if you liked the previous two, you will love this one, and I think it's only gonna keep going and growing, and I'm excited to see where Art goes next. Let's jump into some spoilers, because I need to talk about these kills, guys. The movie opens up with Christmas Day, present day, and this little girl wakes up her parents because she hears something on the roof, and she thinks it's Santa. Her mom puts her back to sleep, tells her it's nothing, and then Art shows up and he starts hacking her family up with an axe. It's brutal. He goes from room to room killing her dad, her brother, her mother, and then lastly he kills her. But he's dressed as Santa. It's a horrifying image, especially if you put yourself in the little kid's shoes, seeing Santa do this horrible thing, and then after he kills everybody he's just eating milk and cookies and he's just like having a good old time in the kitchen. And I just love how there are so many moments like that throughout the movie where he does these horrible things, but it's offset by him acting like a little kid. Like, he's so gleeful that you can't help but laugh. It takes you out of the horrifying stuff you just saw and helps you kind of relax and enjoy yourself a little bit more. After the opening credits, the movie jumps back 5 years where we see Art is decapitated and he somehow gets back to Victoria, his victim friend from Terrifier 1, and he brings her in to help him get his head and body back. So she escapes and they head back to the apartment building from the first movie, and they kind of just die for like 5 years until these two dudes show up to inspect the building and they come back to life. There's a moment where Art literally just unwraps a man's head like a present, and I was like, okay, yes, that's cool, that's cool. But then Victoria, she takes a blade and she pleasures herself. She does a little something with the blade, and it bothered me so much. I was like, was that necessary, Damien? Was it necessary? I don't think it was. I don't think we needed it, but whatever. That was like my biggest issue with this whole movie. Like, I can take everything else, just don't shove anything up there, okay? And it's just supposed to show how depraved they are, blah, blah, blah. I get it. And they didn't really show anything, but they just show her acting like, and she's, it's gross, okay? It disgusts me. And we cut to Sienna being picked up in a psychiatric facility by her uncle, and she is reunited with her family, and there's a young little girl named Gabby. She's her niece, and she's like obsessed with Sienna, blah, 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 blah. And her brother's off in college somewhere. She's struggling, and there's moments where she sees her friend from the previous film sitting at the dinner table, kind of like American Werewolf in London style, and she's screaming at her, blaming her for her death. And it's that stuff I thought was really interesting. And all while we're getting these moments of Sienna struggling, we're seeing Art do his thing where he sees Santa or a person dressed as Santa in a bar, and he goes in there and he's like a little kid. He's so excited to see Santa, and he sits on his lap and he pees on Santa's lap, and then Santa and everybody get pissed off, and then he kills everybody in the bar. He pulls out a gun and kills two guys. Then he ties up Santa. He takes his outfit and he sprays him with this like nitrous glycerin type shit. I don't know what it is, but it freezes his body parts, so then he starts breaking his body parts and he rips his beard off so he can put it on himself, because the Santa said you're not a real Santa unless you got the beard. So Art is now dressed as Santa, finds himself in a mall, and there's little children waiting to see Santa, and he goes up there and all the kids are excited to see him. Who would be? First of all, if you see Art looking like that and I was a kid, there's no fucking way. I'm telling you that much. But anyway, he bribes them with some toys. Kids can't resist toys. Okay, so they all get all the toys, blah, blah, blah. And one kid opens up a present and it explodes. And all those little kids are dead, which was a creative way to get rid of all of those children without actually showing Art kill them off one by one. There's also a college student, two college students, and one is like obsessed with true crime, and she wants to have Sienna and her brother on her podcast to talk about their experiences with Art. The girl is just obsessed. This college student is obsessed. She wants to meet Art and experience him, and meanwhile he's listening into their conversation and he's like flattered by the things she's saying about him as a serial killer. And then he surprises them while they're having sex in the shower with a chainsaw, and he kills them both. And it's overkill, obviously. And I don't know if this is the scene that everybody compares to the bedroom scene in part 2, because he basically chops off lots of limbs, he scalps the girl, messes up her face a bit, and he chops her up, okay? And then the boyfriend is trying to crawl away, and then he takes the chainsaw and slices him up the center, so you see his little giblets and all of that fun stuff, and it's just gross. It's just overkill. And then he does snow or blood angels in the guy's blood. Brilliant. Love it. We cut to Sienna waking up from her bed. I mean, there's some stuff in between, but she literally wakes up from her bed and she goes downstairs, and Art and Victoria are there. I'm like, did I miss something? Like, what the fuck? There was just like a missing moment, because there was never any, there was nothing, there was no like, I expected more build up between Art and Sienna, like them playing with each other instead of him just finding her house. Like, how the fuck did he find her house, first of all? How do you know where she lived? Did they not show that? I don't think they showed that. And she gets there, he overpowers her, and he ties her up. And I was a little bummed that we didn't get more of that fight between Sienna and Art like we did in part 2. She's a little bit weak. He's got the upper hand on her. He ties her up, and she sees her aunt, or whoever she's her aunt, and she's sitting across from her. She's also tied up. And the husband, who we didn't get to see get killed, his head is the star on the top of the Christmas tree, and his body is stuck to the wall, and they're like pulling out his insides like it's a Christmas tree. It's like one of those Christmas tree decorations that you put on the wall. And they start tormenting them, and this kill that they do to the aunt was so brutal, but so damn impressive. I was like, that is messed up. That is depraved. He takes this like cylinder, which I don't even remember what it is, and he shoves it in the woman's mouth, down her throat. And he takes rats and he puts them into it, so they have to crawl through her throat. And then Victoria cuts the woman's throat, and then the rats come out. And that has to be inspired by American Psycho, because there is a kill similar to that in that book. That's pretty brutal and disgusting. But to see it actually play out on screen, I was just like, I was shocked. That's like how I felt about all the kills. I was like, damn, how are they getting away with this? Because they don't even care. They just go full force, and they're prolonged kills. They're not quick. It's just so insane to think that this movie is in a major theater, that regular people are gonna see this, like not just horror people. There were children in my theater, by the way, also, because children love art. For some reason. There's a head that's also sitting between them that they've let rats eat the skin off of. It's soon revealed that that's actually Sienna's brother, Jonathan. Which we don't even see him get killed. He gets killed off screen. What the fuck? I get what they're doing, but there was no build up to that moment. And she's just like, fuck, I don't have anything to live for now. Except Gabby, who also has nothing to live for now because her entire family is dead. And then Gabby's like, I want her to open my present before she dies. So Victoria's like, yeah. So they get the present, and it's the sword, the magical sword, and Sienna somehow opens it, even though Art has beaten the shit out of her hands with a hammer, so she can't really use them. But she gets it open, she gets the saw out, gets Art, hits him somehow, chucks it at Victoria, kills Victoria, and then she starts fighting Art around the apartment, or around the house, blah blah blah. Her hands are magically not hurting anymore, and it's just a battle of good and evil. And then, the floor falls down, and I'm assuming it's the pits of hell, and little Gabby is hanging on for dear life, but she can't fucking muster up her hands that much to just grab what's-her-face, and Sienna can't just grab her, so the little Gabby falls. And then it's over. Art is gone. He's escaped. And Sienna's just sitting there, and she's like, I will find you, Gabby. I think she's in hell, Sienna, so I don't know how you're gonna find her. And then Art is sitting at a bus stop, and he gets on a bus stop. It's snowing. It's beautiful. And then we're done. You know what? It was fun. It was fun, but I do have some issues with the story. I think that the pacing is super weird. It's too fucking long. I think that Sienna doesn't really have a lot to do here. They give her a little bit, but she's kind of like a sitting duck. Victoria was annoying as fuck. I don't really care. I just want to see Art and Art alone. I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think it is worth seeing if you are a fan of the Terrifier franchise, if you love blood and gore, special effects, practical effects, you'll have a blast with this. I don't think anybody goes into these movies really wanting story, because you're not going to get one. You're not going to get a good one. There's going to be some upsetting moments, but overall, I think it's enjoyable. Mainstream audiences might not like it. I think it might be too much for them, but horror fans who love blood and guts and gore, this is yours. This is for you. Merry Christmas. Let me know if you've seen Terrifier 3, what your thoughts are, if you liked it, if you didn't. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Bye.